After a night of deadly airstrikes, the Israeli occupation army has announced the resumption of the ceasefire in Gaza. But the scenes on the ground tell a different story. Entire families buried under the rubble, hospitals overflowing, and neighborhoods reduced to ruins. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered what he claimed to be strong retaliatory attacks, killing dozens of Palestinians, including children. The Gaza Health Ministry said that over 100 Palestinians were killed, including at least 35 children in just 12 hours. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has defended Israel's, what he called, right to respond, insisting nothing can jeopardize the ceasefire. What is the reality that Israel is trying to impose on Gaza during the ceasefire? And what message is Washington sending by justifying Israel's renewed aggression? I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Welcome to In Depth. According to the New York Times, at least 100 Palestinians were killed overnight in Israeli airstrikes across Gaza, marking the deadliest day since the ceasefire began 3 weeks ago. The attacks followed Israeli accusations that Hamas violated the truce by failing to return the bodies of the deceased detainees and attacking soldiers in Rafah, where one Israeli soldier was killed. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz claimed dozens of Hamas commanders were targeted, while Gaza's health ministry said 35 children were among the dead. Despite the destruction, the Israeli military announced that the ceasefire has resumed at 10 a.m. local time.
Israeli warplanes pounded Gaza overnight, targeting residential neighborhoods in what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called a necessary response after an Israeli soldier was killed. Gaza's health ministry said over 100 Palestinians, including 35 children, were killed in the Israeli attacks within less than 12 hours. Rescue crews continue to search the rubble for survivors as hospitals overflow with casualties. The Israeli occupation army then announced early Wednesday that the ceasefire is resumed. The renewed strikes come despite the ongoing ceasefire agreement that had largely halted attacks since October 10th. The attacks followed a statement by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office saying he had ordered immediate powerful attacks, while U.S. President Donald Trump defended Israel's actions, saying nothing will jeopardize the truce. Trump also said that Israel should hit back after a soldier was killed. Hamas responded by postponing the planned handover of the body of an Israeli detainee, accusing Israel of violating the truce. As the occupation army announces the resumption of the ceasefire, Gazans remain surrounded by destruction and grief, uncertain whether calm will truly return or prove only temporary.
For more analysis, we're joined from Ramallah by Mr. Murad Harfoush, political analyst, and from Cairo by Dr. Muhammad Osman, international relations specialist. Welcome to Qnews. I'll start with you, Dr. Osman, now. After a violent night that killed at least 100 Palestinians in a matter of hours, the occupation army announced the resumption of the ceasefire. What is the reality that Israel is trying to impose in Gaza at this point? That they won't go back to war, but also have the right to launch deadly attacks anytime that they wish without any consequences. And we have just heard the Israeli government spokesperson saying that the airstrikes targeted terrorists. That's what she said, ignoring the fact that civilians and children were killed.
Thank you for having me, Hala. Greetings to you and to your audience. It seems that Israel, thank you. Israel has a very twisted definition of the concept of a ceasefire. Any ceasefire in the world is prone to violations taking place, like the one that took place yesterday with the shooting of the Israeli soldier. Hamas denied any responsibility for the shooting and said it is committed to the ceasefire agreement. And even if Israel was within its right, theoretically, to respond to such a violation. Definitely, the response was not proportionate. Hell, it was not even legal. And excuse my choice of words, because what happened yesterday was another episode of carnage that reminded us of the days of bloodletting and open war in the Gaza Strip. A random bombardment of civilian areas and urban areas inside the Gaza Strip, causing the death of over 104 people, including around 30 to 40 children. Those hardly sound like or seem like terrorists to me, Hala. So it seems that the Israelis are bent on breaking the will of the Palestinians, humiliating them, and also jeopardizing the chances of the success and the endurance of this ceasefire. What they were aiming at, in my opinion, with yesterday's ravaging campaign of aerial bombardment on Gaza and artillery shelling as well, was that they wished to provoke some sort of response from the Palestinian resistance factions so that it would be a pretext for the resumption of the war. But it seems that the Palestinians acted in a very self-restrained manner, very responsibly, reiterated their commitment to the ceasefire. And also, on the positive side, despite the carnage and the massacre that took place yesterday, the Americans have displayed that they can rein in the Israelis. Even though the Americans permitted this criminal endeavor yesterday, yet they also restrained the Israelis so that they wouldn't go as far as to take any drastic actions that could lead to the collapse of the ceasefire. Israel is pushing for the expansion of its areas of control inside the Gaza Strip to go way beyond the yellow line and redeploy in areas that they withdrew from. It seems that the Americans are holding them back now. So despite Israel's violations of the ceasefire, very blatant violations and disproportionate violations and illegal violations of the ceasefire, it seems that the ceasefire agreement is going to hold in the near future at least.
Mr. Harfoush, welcome to Q News. Let me start by asking you, Hamas has postponed the handover of an Israeli detainee body as a response to Israeli violations. How is that received inside Gaza, especially that Israeli government spokesperson said that Hamas did not abide by the ceasefire, we have just heard her, and that the army launched strikes on Gaza to target Hamas members. That's what she claimed in a live conference.
Good evening to you and to everyone who's watching and to your guests. I think that the Israeli administration statements that what they did yesterday, what the Israeli occupation forces did yesterday by targeting Hamas, they killed 100 civilians. And 46 of them were children that were killed yesterday, and then also 20 Palestinian women. This is also added to the great number to the martyrs that were killed from the start of the war on the Palestinians. And this number is because of the Israeli aggression over the past 2 years that targeted civilians and Palestinians and destroyed the Gaza Strip. They destroyed around 90% of the infrastructure in the Gaza Strip and even medical institutions. And yeah, of course, Hamas has postponed the handover of the Israeli detainee body because of these aggressions on the Gaza Strip and because of the continued bombardment across the strip. Even the tents were targeted where the civilians and Palestinians are staying, children, women, families across the Gaza Strip. But the people in the Gaza Strip are fearing that the war and the genocide will be back and will be reignited, and everyone in the Gaza Strip, they want the first phase of the permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip to be implemented so that they can get their life back after 2 years of a genocide and ethnic cleansing, and especially that they've lost so much of their people and have faced great destruction in mosques churches, schools, hospitals, educational institutions. It's been 2 years now that the Palestinian children haven't gone to school, in addition to the destruction in the infrastructure and the medical institutions in Gaza. Around 16,000 are injured and are at a risk of dying because the Rafah crossing is still closed, and the agreement was supposed to have the Rafah crossing operating, but the occupation forces have stated that they have completely closed the Rafah crossing, and this is a clear breach of the agreement and shows that Netanyahu is not keeping his end of the deal with the ceasefire agreement, and this shows that the Israeli occupation forces are trying to violate the agreement and not comply to all the points, and with the far right government pressure and the conflicts that are going on internally, the continued threat of the importance of having the of reigniting the war.
Mhm. Dr. Osman, US President Donald Trump said that the attacks are self-defense, not violations of the ceasefire, and cannot jeopardize the ceasefire. What do you think are the American standards of a ceasefire violation?
I think that the Americans also have a very twisted definition of a ceasefire violation, and also the concept of self-defense, it seems, because how is it exercising my right to self-defense when I corporate bomb parts of a city and caused the death of over 100 people? I don't think, how can we define or fit that into any coherent, logical narrative and morally grounded narrative that would justify grounds for self-defense? A single soldier was shot yesterday. For all we know, he could have been shot by friendly fire. You know that the previous time this happened, about a week ago, Hala, when two soldiers died due to an explosion, and it was said back then, according to reports, that there were clashes and that the Israeli army intervened and that they were targeted by an anti-tank missile.
Yes.
Investigations revealed afterwards that all what happened is that those soldiers stepped on unexploded ordinances, Israeli unexploded ordinances.
That Israel planted already.
Yes. So they died with the bombs they threw and did not explode. So it was basically their mistake. However, they used that to justify a wave of a smaller wave of airstrikes back that caused the death of several Palestinians. This time, we might discover that something similar had happened. And even if Hamas did carry out this attack, it is logical that the Israelis would respond proportionately against Hamas targets, and not so on a very wide range set of targets, which are mostly civilian targets.
Yes.
But at the same time, also, what the Americans are doing, basically, they are trying to justify the actions of the Israelis because they have to leave them something. They have to make Netanyahu and his government a safe face in front of the Israeli public, so that they would seem as if they are strong and tough, and that they will respond very disproportionately to any given violation. But on the other hand, the Americans seem to be very committed to the ceasefire. They reined in the Israelis. If it's up to the Israelis, Hara, we would not be even having a ceasefire. This war would be continuing until the end, until the Israelis annihilate whatever is of Gaza. The Americans apparently do not support this course of action anymore, so they are reining them in. So despite the very shameful stance of the United States and their overt stance being completely biased towards Israel in yesterday's and this morning's rampage of violence and bloodletting, behind the scenes, it seems the Americans are playing a mildly more positive role by reining in the Israelis and preventing them from carrying out any escalation that could actually lead to the unraveling of this agreement and its collapse. On the other hand, we knew from day one, Hala, that violations will occur. We knew that this will not be easy. We should not be surprised by the death of more Palestinians, unfortunately. However, as long as the ceasefire stands, there will always be hope that peace might prevail in Gaza.
This is what we need to hold on to. Mr. Harfoush, after the latest wave of attacks, what does the ceasefire's resumption mean at this point? How do such contradictory signals affect public confidence in any political or security agreements with Israel?
It, without doubt, Israel and Netanyahu have the green light from the USA to impose reality and facts that have to do that when the Israeli government can see that there is a violation from Hamas, that they have the right to respond. Using the pretext of Hamas stalling, handing over the detainee bodies, even though Hamas has talked during the negotiations of the ceasefire that was done in that were done in Sharm el-Sheikh. They said that they will have or they will face obstacles to get all the detainees and the detainees' bodies because they don't have the necessary equipment and the bulldozers. They don't have the logistics to get the bodies from under the rubble, and that a number of those who were protecting those detainees were killed, and they don't know where they are. In addition to the destruction that the bombardment did, that changed how the whole strip looks now. And so yeah, Israel is trying to have what happened in Lebanon and Syria happen in the Gaza Strip, meaning that they want to stay there for a long time and target the security threat that is threatening its forces in the Gaza Strip and attack civilians. Yesterday we had 104 Palestinians killed, around 47 of them were children, where these military targets and where these part of Hamas, or were they just children, civilian children, or is the reality that the occupation forces wanna continue the war? And so this shows that this agreement could actually be fragile and is actually threatened every second, and that there is a chance that we will go back to war and to the genocide. And here the US is the only one that can guarantee that Netanyahu will commit to the ceasefire and will not violate it. And even though the Palestinian resistance showed readiness to implement all phases of the agreement, not just the first phase, but the second phase as well, even though they have that they are facing challenges and barriers to move on to phase two. But this was crucial for the future of the Gaza Strip. And of course, phase two is still vague, and we need more clarity on it, and we need more efforts from the mediators so that we can make it clear and to overcome the obstacles, even though Netanyahu is calculating what to do on the Gaza Strip according to the Israeli elections that are coming up. And the vote, actually internally, the vote have come up, and they are saying that Netanyahu is trying to keep his chair, and that they are getting ready now for the elections, even though this government and the upcoming elections and in December 2026. But Netanyahu has a lot of obstacles that are facing him now to stay in chair, and so this is why he's doing this now, so that he can stay in place. He is trying to resume the war on the Palestinians when he talks about violations from the Palestinian resistance and the Gaza Strip, knowing that he is talking on behalf there were statements from more than one leader from the Palestinian resistance that they are committing and implementing the ceasefire, and they want to keep this permanently and not just for now, and that they are ready to implement the upcoming phases of this agreement, which is not the case for the Israeli government that are still threatening to reignite the war on the Palestinians, as we saw from the statements from Israel's government that they will threaten and basically kill anyone who threatens the Israeli government. And they are saying that Hamas is violating the agreement, but actually the occupation forces are targeting civilians, children, women. They are targeting the tents where the families are staying. It is preventing the reopening of the corridors, like the Rafah crossing. They are not allowing the injured to go out to get medical attention, and are not committing to the agreement from the very first second. They have been breaching and violating the agreement, not honoring it, and are saying that everything is basically Hamas. It's because of Hamas and their
I get
violations.
your
And
point. Yes, I get your point. Now, Dr. Osman, could this pattern of bombardment followed by brief ceasefire become like an entrenched Israeli doctrine as it is in, for example, in Lebanon?
Sadly, so it seems, Hannah. It seems that the Israelis are seeking to replicate the Lebanon model in Gaza. However, the problem is Gaza cannot really bear the Lebanon model, the execution of the Lebanon model, because unlike Lebanon, Gaza has been completely destroyed and the people have nowhere to go.
And sieged, and completely sieged, unlike Lebanon.
Exactly. And it's besieged, and most of Gaza, 58%, is occupied by the Israelis, and there's a very dire and deep and catastrophic humanitarian crisis.
Yes.
So any obstruction of the entry of aid, or resumption of hostilities, or delay of the reconstruction of Gaza will have very detrimental effects and consequences for the livelihood and even the survival of the inhabitants of Gaza. But unfortunately, Israel seeks to do just that. That Gaza would be in this situation of no war, no peace situation, where they have a free hand to execute operations at any time of their convenience, in accordance with their so-called security needs and their expansionist urges as well. So, of course, this is a very dangerous pattern of behavior by the Israelis, and the Americans need to be more decisive in preventing that. They have to understand that if they are invested and committed to the success of the agreement in Gaza, which President Trump has basically taken as the flagship of his flotilla of peace all around the world. So I think that he should be very eager that this agreement should not fail, because if it creates a situation where where it becomes a farce, where it becomes a situation where the suffering of the Palestinian continues and the bloodletting and the bloodshed continues, it will devoid it of any actual meaning as a peace agreement. So I think that the Americans need to be more committed, and I think that the Arab mediators, including Egypt, of course, especially Egypt, will consult more vociferously with the Americans over the next few days, in order to ensure that all the parties uphold and respect the ceasefire.
Mr. Harfouch, I need a very brief answer to my question. What message do these strikes send to Gaza civilians who believed in the ceasefire?
War isn't over, and the ceasefire is still fragile, and the occupation forces still want to keep up or keep the war going and target the civilians. And maybe they will not just stay in the Gaza Strip, they will go beyond that. And there are some talks in Israel saying that Netanyahu might have some military operations, not just in the Gaza Strip, but also in southern Lebanon. And this is a challenge here for the people in the Gaza Strip, because war is not over up till now, and the genocide is continued, and the Israeli plans, they are still trying to achieve their goals and their plans. And this agreement, even though we had guarantees from Israel to the mediators, and the US, but still they are not committing to the agreement and are violating it, and we still have a risk of going back to war unless the USA, with all its statements and so on, and then their statement saying that war is over in Gaza, but yeah, there are still Israeli aggressions and civilian targeting, and the number of killed people is still going up. The injured too. We're having hundreds of injured people over the past days. The corridors are still closed as well. We haven't started reconstruction, and the Israeli occupation forces haven't allowed the delivery of any equipment to start reconstruction in the Gaza Strip, or even to from the infrastructure that the Israeli forces have destroyed since the 7th of October 2023 up till the 10th of this ongoing
Yes.
month. Where
I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Murad Harfoush, political analyst. Thank you so much for being with us, as well as Dr. Muhammad Osman, international relations specialist. Always a pleasure having you both, gentlemen. Thank you for your valuable insights. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. My name is Hilal Hamalawi. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.